Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books. Today I am doing a tag, so I'm a little bit late to doing this tag. Shannon over at That So Po tagged me ages ago, what feels like ages ago, but this is the Anti TBR Tag. The original tag was created by Nicole in her books. I will link both of their channels down below in their tag videos so you can go take a look at them. I have the questions here in front of me, and so let's start going through them. So prompt number 1 is popular book everyone loves that you have no interest in reading. I thought long and hard about this one because I very rarely say no to reading a book, especially one that's popular. Usually if it's a book that's very popular, I actually want to read it to see what all the hype is about. And lately I feel like the people I follow have quite different kinds of taste, and I don't see anybody just promoting one book, or not one book is like rising to the top, but when I look at the recent books that came out, I see the Sarah J. Maas book and I'm like, yeah, okay, I have no interest in reading that one. I don't even know what it's called. When I first joined BookTube, I was somewhat interested in her books, and I just don't have a ton of interest. It just doesn't appeal to me. I have nothing against them. Just FYI. Prompt number 2 is a classic book or author you don't have an interest in reading. And again, I don't feel that nothing jumped to mind except for It by Stephen King, because Olivia over at Olivia's Catastrophe did a review of this in which she made herself finish the entire book, and she just talked about how the problems within it, some of the racism, and some of the other things. And I have to confess that, especially after hearing her review, I just have no interest in reading it. On the other hand, there's a couple of other Stephen King books that I might be interested in, but I'm not like jumping for reading Stephen King just now. Nothing against horror or against Stephen King himself, although I think that some of the issues of like his use of the N-word and things like that are issues that come up routinely in his books, and that makes me less likely to want to pick them up. But I'm not saying I'll never pick up a Stephen King book. Prompt number 3 and 3.2. Let's see, 3 is an author whose books you have no interest in reading. 3.2 is a problematic author whose books you have no interest in reading. I am combining these two because I have a couple. All right, American Dirt. I'll put a picture up. I have absolutely zero interest in reading this book. For a while I considered reading and reviewing it just so that there would be more voices out there, so that when you type in the title into YouTube, that the first things that come up are people talking about the problems with this book. But enough people I know have talked about the problems, the stereotypes of Mexicans and of immigrants used in this book, and just plain stuff she gets wrong in the book. So I have absolutely no interest in it. I also wanted to mention Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I was really interested in her book Americana a while back, and then I heard her come out in support of J.K. Rowling in her transphobic comments, and now I just have no interest in her writing anymore. Prompt number 4 is an author you have read a couple of books from and have decided their books are not for you. And this was a difficult one for me because there are times in which there's a huge gap between when I start reading an author and then when I continue reading them. But I have to say, Anne Rice, I just don't have a ton of necessity to continue reading her books. I read one of her books, Memnoch the Devil, because one of my students read it. The student liked the book, and I just thought it was a bit... There's a scene where a vampire is like sucking menstrual blood. Yeah. So, and apparently this is this kind of thing. The shock value is, the instances of shock are common in her books, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess not for me. Um, Prompt number 5 is a genre you have no interest in, or a genre you tried to get into and couldn't. And if you watched any of my videos, you know that I jump around to any and all genres. I am a genre slut. I will jump from like YA to classics to gothic to like you name it, I will read it. Except maybe poetry. Poetry is where I am the weakest at in my reading. I read very little poetry. And Shannon at That's So Point, Priscilla at Bookie Charm are the two people who have made me feel like I need to delve into poetry more, looking at probably Latinx poets and poets of color, and that would probably make me like poetry a lot more. And I think they're right. I just need to pull the trigger. The other thing with poetry is that I feel like it works better for me as an audiobook. Like the books in verse that I've really enjoyed, I've consumed via audiobook. And especially with the writer, the poet reading their own words. So I'm going to try that. But I have to admit that I don't currently read a lot of poetry, so it fits the prompt. Prompt number 6 is a book you have bought but will never read. This can be a book you have on haul, returned to the library unread. I don't like unhauling books because I love seeing my bookshelves full. It's just one of those things that I come from a family in which I was the first one to like become a reader, and so that is really valuable to me to see like books on a shelf. But I have recently started an unhaul pile because I purchased all of the Robert Galbraith books. It's J.K. Rowling's pen name, which she writes like thriller mysteries, and I bought all of those books used, and now I have no interest in reading them. And because I just don't want to support her. I don't want to hurt trans people in my community, in the book community, and so they're getting unhauled, unread, and that's that. Question number 7 is a series you have no interest in reading, or a series you started and have DNF'd. And this was another hard one because I love starting series. I love long-running series. I mean, I'm reading the In Debt series, which has 50 plus books in it, and I'm at like 30 something. So I love it. And then, you know, I have a billion other like urban fantasy series that I've started, but the one that I can say I don't plan on going back to is The Storm Runner by J.C. Cervantes. I read the first book because it's a like middle grade Latinx story featuring Mayan mythology, and I was really excited about it, but there's also some very problematic elements in that book. A lot of ableism, things like that didn't sit well. And so if anybody has continued reading the series, let me know if that goes away in the more recent releases, and maybe I would give it another chance. But because I do think that authors are allowed to make mistakes. They can write really problematic themes and elements and then correct that, you know, as they learn, as they grow. So most of the time I don't like saying I'll never read something from an author again unless they like, you know, double down on their mistakes. Otherwise I let authors grow, but I don't have to be there for their growth. I don't have to be the teacher, but you know, if somebody comes back and tells me this person has done better now, give them another chance, then why not? I have no problem with that part. But like I said, there are books and authors that I'm just like, no anymore. Like, oh, another one I should just bring in since we're talking dirt in this video. Naomi Wolf, I believe is her name. She just published a book last year, and the paperback just came out, in which she got factual elements wrong. Historians corrected her. The problem was she didn't read the historiography, what other people have written about. This is about the place of gay men in 19th century Britain, and she got things majorly wrong, and then only changed minor things for the paperback. A lot of the glaring mistakes were left in. And I'm not going to read that book. Problem number 8 is a new release you have no interest in reading. And again, this was like, oh, what's a new release? So maybe the Naomi Wolf book would actually count as that, because it's new in paperback. And I'm like, not gonna read that. The Tattooist of Auschwitz, another book that I don't plan on reading. I don't need to read another book of work of fiction set in the Holocaust unless it's really good. And the Auschwitz Memorial Museum has said that this book has a lot of factual errors in it. Historical fiction does not need to be entirely factually correct, but I'm like, I've studied the Holocaust, I teach the Holocaust, and so I don't need to pick up this particular book. I have nothing against people who pick it up as long as they understand that some of the facts, some of the history in it are wrong. And I think as long as a reader goes into it knowing that, and they're not expecting to learn history from that particular book, then, you do you. And I will do me. I did pick out another book though. I picked up a book that was a recent release. The Fair Winds by Kristen Hanna. I have nothing against Kristen Hanna. I've only read one of her books and I liked it. It was the one set in World War II in France. But this one just, didn't call to me. I looked at the description. I know a lot of people really love Kristen Hanna, and I was just like, no, I'm not going to pick it up. At least not right now. I never say never with any of these things, because if the situation changed, then my mind will change. I reserve that right. So I am not going to tag anyone because I think this tag is now a little bit old, but if anybody out there wants to do this tag, please do it and let me know that you're going to do it down below so I can watch your video. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.